now to Voice of Coaches.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Voice of Coaches with Safa Murphy. It is my pleasure today to interview Carolyn Coradeschi. Carolyn is the author of the Rainmakers Quick Guide to Lasting Sales Success. She is a professional certified coach by International Coach Academy and accredited through International Coach Federation. Today, her global coaching clients benefit from the skills she learned and applied successfully during her sales and management career. She coaches groups, one-to-one clients, and delivers group workshops and public speaking. Carolyn lives in Southern California with her husband and 2 sons. She has traveled around the globe for business and pleasure. Carolyn is known for being an avid runner and youth track coach. Hello, Carolyn.
Hi, Safa. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for taking time with me today.
Thank you. Congratulations of having Brian Tracy endorse your book.
Pretty exciting, huh?
Very exciting, of course, yeah. How do you feel about that?
Well, I was, needless to say, elated when I got the news, but if you don't mind, I can share a story that led up to getting that endorsement. Would that be okay?
Of course.
Yeah, well, Brian Tracy has been, I will say in quotations, a hero of mine for many years. I've been in the sales industry, been in sales for the last almost 30 years, 29 years marks this year. And I've read all of his books and I promote him and share his knowledge and really have really revered him for many years. And when I was putting my book together, my publisher said, so when we're finished, putting all the copy together, you want to get endorsements. And I started thinking of those big leaders in the world that I would want to have a testimonial in my book. And he was at the top of my list. And I'll tell you, Safa, being in sales, I've got pretty tough skin and I'm persistent. And I had a list of pretty big names, and I would say it was my top. And I got several no's along the way. But what that no and each no propelled me to do is reach a little bit higher. And when I wrote to Brian Tracy, I wrote a nice note about how much I had followed his career and that I really appreciated how he shares his knowledge and tips with the world. And got a response back saying, send the book and I'll review and let you know. And then it sat for a while, and I followed up, and I was getting in touch with the assistant and that assistant and calling and just being persistent. And finally...
Persistent.
Yes, persistent.
Keyword here.
It paid off, and I wasn't going to give up, but I wanted to give them space. So just like in my sales career and coaching others to have a successful career in sales, I knew when to kind of pull back and when to push a little bit. And finally got in touch with the right person who got it again to Brian Tracy, and he wrote a really nice testimonial for me. And also wrote a little personal note saying, we sales pros need to stick together, Carolyn. So it was very appreciative, and it propelled me to get a few other bigger names that I might not have gone after. So I am so pleased. He is on the cover of my book with his quote, and I will continue to support him because he does a lot for not just the sales world out there, but motivational speaking, and he has quite an audience.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
Yeah.
As well. He's sustained for so long in the industry, and this is very inspiring to everybody. Do you agree about that? I
do. No, I'm and what I heard from talking to my publisher is just go after the big ones, and you can always hear the word no. You're not afraid of that. You'll find the right people will come forward and want to endorse. So he's my man.
We would like to hear more about your book and how it relates to your sales coaching career. So may I ask some questions here?
Sure.
About that?
Let's do it.
Okay. So how does your sales experience relate to what you write about in your book, the Rainmakers Quick Guide to Lasting Sales Success?
Well, it's a great question, Safa, and let's maybe explain or identify what a Rainmaker is, because some people might be going, I don't know what that is. I mean, when I was little, it was a dance we used to do when we wanted it to rain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so there are a lot of connotations of what a Rainmaker is. But many years ago, I was in a medical sales career, and I had a wonderful manager. who gave me a book called How to Become a Rainmaker. And she said, Carolyn, you're a Rainmaker. And she inscribed in the book and signed it. And it's a very simple book by Jeffrey Fox that talks about the basics of that mindset of a Rainmaker and what they do to differentiate themselves. So what I wanted to do in this book was take my personal experience, and not only mine, but tell it through stories, because I love stories, and I know a lot of people will agree to read a book if they know that it's not just text and samples of ideas and tips. So I really wanted to make this a personal experience. And so really what a Rainmaker is it's someone who can close sales deals and bring business into a company consistently. They are the life force or the lifeblood of each company. And I belonged to many a sales team and was always a top producer that felt that, it was my responsibility to keep this company afloat, especially now my own company. And so the book really is about when you implement the tools and strategies that I share in the book, you'll be able to generate sales wherever you want because you'll possess these different qualities that a Rainmaker possesses. And so that's the general overview of the book. And again, in it, I share and interview other top sales experts in their fields to get ideas of what helps them progress, along the way and to be number one in their industries. Does that help you get a little better idea of what the book is about?
Yeah. And it actually stimulate my mind to ask about why did you write this book?
Well, I wanted to share, after being in this industry for almost 30 years, I have a voice, and I feel that I am a sales expert. And even though it's medical that I've spent most of my years in, sales is sales, and we can really translate this word that some people are a fear of what, the sales, and sometimes they glorify it by calling it marketing. By the way, they're two different things, but they need each other. They definitely need each other. So just like, a marriage, they complement. And so I think what I wanted to do is get the word out that that sales can be as simple as having a conversation. And if you don't mind me sharing a quick story about my son.
I would love to hear.
I have two boys. Cole's my older one, and Cooper. Cooper's 11, but I'm going to take you back a few years when he was just about 3 or 4. And my husband on the side makes wine, and we were having a wine party in our backyard here in California. And Cooper was so excited to invite all these people over. They were older people. And he helped prepare and set the tables and was the greeter. And mind you, he's 3 or 4 years old at the time, but he had so much fun. He had a blast. And everybody left, and Cooper said to me and my husband, he said, "Oh my gosh, Mom, that was so much fun. I love meeting new people. When are we having the next party?" And that's the way I feel sales is. I love meeting new people. I love supporting new people and ongoing having these relationships with them and sharing ideas and collaborating with them on how they can do better, how they can not just increase their sales, but learn a process maybe that they haven't implemented. But really, in actuality, sales is having conversations. It's a dialogue just like you and I are having right now. Some people put such pressure on themselves to go sell and to close the deal. And sales has really, if you talk to anybody in this field that's been in it for a while, has really transpired into something completely different than it was back in the 80s when I learned how to sell. It really is about serving your client and finding out the need, but not just the need, but what are the opportunities so that you can then collaborate on a solution. And so when you look at it that way, as far as serving your client, which I know you do because you're a big advocate of this, then sales is fun. It's a really fun.
It's really fun, yeah.
So many things go into it. I think it's a science and an art, but it can be learned. And I think some people think they're natural born salespeople only, and I would contest that and say, really? When I started out, I was a shy sophomore in college. Never would have thought I got into this career, but I learned I had a skill set, and I was trained and coached to improve. And so really, with mentors and coaches and guidance, all of that out there, we can all become great salespeople if that's our chosen path.
So coaches need to learn about sales and its process?
So true. You can speak to that. We all can. It's interesting. Yeah. In coaching, I predominantly work with those in any walk of life of sales, but I have a love for those in the medical arena since I spent 15 years there. But I also coach coaches. I mean, the relationship we have. And you're a bit different from a lot of them. Some of them just, they want to coach, and they think if somebody could just get me the clients, then I will be so happy. I'll just be in front of my clients and I can have my business. But we all know that if we're not willing to get out there and do what it takes to ask for the business and be creative in that process and put a process in place, we won't have a business. We won't have those clients to talk to. So, I think part of what I talk about in the book is having an abundant supply of prospects and having that feeling of abundance. I know that's a word that you like. A lot of coaches relate to that. But really having kind of a heart-centered or bold selling approach really is, I think, that you can actually merge the two and utilize both of them. So it's not a hard sell, but you can really be, again, in that mindset of how can I serve this client? And it's not always a fit, right, Safa? We know that we have these conversations and sometimes it's just not going to go forward, and that's okay.
Yeah, accepting the rejection.
Exactly, or the no.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask to clarify more about the book. Who will benefit from your book?
Okay. Well, I think anybody that is, as Daniel Pink says in his book, To Sell is Human, 1 in 9 people are professionally in sales, and the other 8 are. They may not know it. we all sell for a living. And that may seem such an obvious statement, but, getting your kids to do homework or convincing somebody to go see a movie with you, or you'd rather go to this restaurant and you need to sell your husband on that, it's convincing and being enthusiastic about the decision that you want to go forward with. So really what I do in this book and how it can help those that are the experienced salesperson, expert, pro, and those that are beginning their career, and everybody in between, because I'm a big believer of going back to the basics. Sometimes we try to do all these fancy moves and these tricky things that we think are going to work, and out-of-the-box thinking, and I love that stuff. But I also think a lot in my coaching, and can think of a client just today that we were talking about this, is it's a lot of it, Safa, is going back to the basics. Really, are we listening? Powerful listening. The questions we ask. Do we have our potential client's best interest at mind, in our heart? Do we, when we move forward with the sales process, do we even have a sales process? I go over this a lot in the book, is what is your process? And some people might go, I'm just out there winging it. Well, and if that's working for you, great, but I don't know too many people out there that are just winging it and having consistent results. And so what I find that the book really helps to do is to put a process in place, your process, you own it, but have something. I don't care if it's 3 steps or 17, but put something in place that keeps you accountable to helping your clients moving the sales process forward and gaining the business and gaining access to your clients. So I find there's a lot of apprehension out there in beginning salespeople, and maybe somebody who has shifted into a sales career from another sales industry, in access to their decision makers. So I talk a lot about that mindset in how to gain access to the decision makers, the confidence that you need, the not just your appearance, but yeah, it comes down to that as well, but your conviction that you belong. All of those things come into play when it's sales, and it's like sports, a big majority of it is mindset. So unparalleled listening skills and a simple yet powerful sales process, I think, are huge, and what I really dive in a little bit more deeply into in this book, but all told through stories. So again, it's not just lists and here are tips. There's some of that, because I think it's important to have those kind of as a checklist. And I have resources where you can get more information on that. But really hearing, from top sales pros in their field, what their challenges were and how they overcame. So that's the fun in the book. I wanted to make it a little bit different. It's a quick read, so it's not a long, lengthy 300-page book. Maybe there'll be a sequel to it. I had a lot of fun writing this, but the idea is that it takes you through a process, and then you can determine what process fits for you, but have one.
So I understand you write the book including personal stories of your own and others. How do stories help you sell?
Yeah, I worked for a company before I started my own sales coaching company, and they were really big on stories, and I think this is one of the companies that really understood that it was a very tricky kind of sale. It was getting referrals for those that had Alzheimer's to be placed in an assisted living. and I was the outside liaison for this particular company. And what I found was it wasn't my story always. It was stories of others that had success. It may have been, what I find is it's kind of two or threefold here in storytelling. When I get in with a potential client, I can't wait for them to open up and tell me, as much as they want to share. So it's not about me talking. It's about the powerful listening and the powerful questions and the stories. So sometimes people are a little bit more reluctant. Safa, you may have found this in your own coaching where unless you share something first, then they'll give
building the trust,
yeah,
breaking the ice.
Yes, and showing a little bit of vulnerability. And you have to know how much you can share. So I have found that it's all about reading the person in front of you and having experience. I mean, my first job was selling books door to door. I did this 7 years and trained students and college students and went to Ireland and built a program over there. So I got really good at listening for needs and for asking questions, and that was the start of my selling career. And what I find is if you just barrage a client with your own story, it's not always the right place, but sometimes people don't want to open up. They're a little bit less trustful. And so in this relationship building era of sales, which I think is so key, we really do need to focus in on and read our client or our potential client. Start off with a few questions. If you find reluctance, then you say, do you mind if I share a story? And it doesn't have to be personal about you, it could be, or it could be about a client that had some great success or was a little reluctant. So I think it's being aware and always asking if it's appropriate or okay to share a story. But yeah, what you're doing when you ask somebody to share and you really listen powerfully is you're validating them. And people really, I think the biggest thing people want in life is to be validated.
I understand you are a big proponent of using powerful questions in your book and in the sales process. Tell me how powerful questions support your sales process. But first, can you clarify to the listeners of Voice of Coaches what is a powerful question?
It's a great, powerful question. There you go. Well, I think one thing that really helped me to understand, obviously through coaching and coach training, we learned to ask questions in sales. That's why I love this career, because the two just merge and parallel each other so well. Powerful questions, really, I think it relates a lot to the stories and wanting to hear the story of your potential client. It's really getting powerful questions allow your potential client to open up and engage. As you build that relationship and they become a client, then they trust and tell you more. But in that beginning stage, when you ask not just a how are you today, or nice to meet you, how's the weather? Those are not powerful questions. Those are kind of thin rapport building questions. But then you take it to another level and you get a little bit deeper and you really ask them, what is your vision? I'm really curious to hear, what is your vision for your business or for your company or for your personal, fill in the blank. And it's really deeply listening so that we're doing powerful listening and asking powerful questions back and forth. And to share a little bit more on that subject, Andrew Sobel, who, by the way, also wrote a book called Power Questions, and I have had a chance to communicate with. He's actually wrote a nice endorsement for my book as well, and I've done so for him because I really believe in what he does. As far as the powerful questions, it really is, his belief is that when we engage and we are quiet and we really listen, they will tell you, they will actually sell for you. They will tell you what their needs are, what the opportunities are, and then you listen for those buying signals. So powerful questions allow you to listen, if I can recap, for the real buying signals. They'll tell you if you let them talk. They'll tell you their needs. They'll open up the opportunities. And instead of pouncing on that opportunity right away and saying, oh, I can fill that need, you listen more and you ask more. So powerful questions build upon each other. And, there are tons of examples, but it's going deeper. It's going deeper into the conversation and reading your prospect and saying, what could I ask that's not a humdrum everyday question, but will really get them talking, opening up, chatting, telling me more, and genuinely wanting to know the answer. Because you can ask a question and then just, move on. But if you really listen for what they say, then it's a powerful question.
As an avid runner, can you tell the listeners of Voice of Coaches what is the relationship between running and sales from your point of view?
Running has gotten me through so much, and I think it parallels selling so much because there are challenges every day. You know, you can go out, and if we're just thinking about a race, that's the end result, as in a sale, that's an end result, right? But we're talking about in this book and just in the sales process is the word process. What is the process? So when I go out and run every morning, quite early before it's light out, my process is, you know, that's my discipline. And so that I know when I have that race 2 months down the line, I'm prepared. The same thing in a sale, if I can make an analogy, is, and this may seem really simple and obvious, but if you're not prepared and you're not working with a process, all you're thinking about is the end result. And then there's all this angst and anxiety about will I or will I not make the sale. And if you have a manager above you that's pressuring, then you feel that pressure and you put pressure on yourself. So my whole success, I think, has been, and many others that I've learned from, my gosh, you know, I have mentors that I rely on this information for that have walked me through this over the years, and now I can share it, is have a process. We talked about this. So running, you know, I'm a better person. I'm a better parent, a better wife, a better friend because I run, because I physically take care of myself every day, and I meet those needs, and it helps me be a better at my career as well because I feel energized. You know, I make sure that I get it in every day somehow so that I am taking care of myself and I can serve others better. And the same thing in the sale. You know, it's that discipline of check and balance. Am I on target with this process? I'm not thinking about, yes, the sale comes up, like, will I make this sale? But when I get anxious about whether it's going to happen or not, I have a step-by-step process that walks me through, a guide, you know, a roadmap that I can rely on. And it will either work or it won't. And a lot of the times it will work because I have the ingredients that I've used over and over again. Does that answer your question, Safa?
Yeah, it is a pleasure having you, Caroline, on Voice of Coaches.
Thank you, Safa, for all the powerful questions. I love it.
Thank you.